Hello and welcome to Bits and Atoms, the Grisham Robotics Founder Series. I'm your host, Elias Can, and today I've got Roddy Herbert, co-founder and CEO of Koru Vibe, joining me. To get started, Roddy, would you mind sharing a quick intro about you and Koru Vibe?
Sure. I started my first business when I was 25, actually selling fax machines. So not really glamorous, but taught me one thing that really shaped everything else since. Most of my competitors were tied to one manufacturer, so they sold whatever the manufacturer made, whether it was suited to the customer or not. I wasn't tied to anyone. I was able to buy from various manufacturers and actually fit the need. And that was what I was really concerned about, making sure I had the best product for that need, not trying to sell just the product. It sounds kind of simple, but it became my whole operating pattern, if you like. Feel the real need, build the answer around it, but so don't fall in love with the product. Actually go looking for someone to sell it to, look for the need. So Koru Vibe got started when I was actually in Bahrain doing a talk, and I was also moderating on a panel, and I met this guy called Noor, and he had been basically working with children and using robots, physical robots, building physical robots, coding physical robots as a means to improve their innovation and their creative thinking. My background, I've spent 23 years working with adults, basically running presentations for the NHS and corporates and in education, specifically on resilience and communications, particularly when people are under pressure. And I based it on science. The science basically, the why and the best techniques as to the how. And I asked Noor a very simple question. I said, what happens when one of your children that's in these teams, when they're actually communicating together, does one person take over and lots of the others just stand back? And what he actually said was, yes, that's exactly what happens. There's one or two people that take the lead and the others kind of fall back. And I said, what about if the coding doesn't work? Do you get some of the kids really kind of freaking out? And he said, yeah, sometimes they chuck the robots across the room. And this is where we started to talk about looking at resilience and communication under pressure and moving it downstream. So I was talking to adults all the time, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be fantastic, instead of adults having to pay to learn what is basically a life skill, actually, why don't we look at ensuring these we move the skills and techniques upstream? So we're actually talking to primary school children, so they have those skills. So that's basically how we started looking at it. And then I was looking at working with him with these physical robots, and then COVID hit. So we flipped the model and we did it into virtual. So that's basically, when we talk about robotics, it can be a little bit misleading. Our cobots aren't physical robots. They're actually animated characters, and they're delivered through the cloud. So I don't know if that kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. And it's funny you mentioned resiliency and performance under pressure, because it sounds like those kids and students will be great founders in the future, because those are some good traits to look for. And interesting, that it's delivered through the cloud. And I mean, COVID was such a big disruption for everybody. I think especially for folks building in and shipping physical product, especially with all the challenges around supply chain and manufacturing with COVID. And so it makes a lot of sense that you'd shifted to more of a virtual environment instead. I'm curious, because I think, you did a great job giving a bit more in terms of the story of how Koru Vibe came along and where you kind of are now. What's kind of the status quo for students today in terms of, social and emotional learning, and maybe some of these STEM or more robotics oriented learning opportunities? What do kids have access to today?
Yeah, well, the status quo for social emotional learning is mostly lessons, things like assemblies and worksheets. So a program teacher will probably just deliver when there's a slot, and then there's two problems with that. First, it depends entirely on how good the teacher is. Some brilliant teachers out there, but what happens when that teacher leaves? And the second is it reaches children that are already probably doing fine, and it tends to miss the dysregulated child, the one that needs it most. And there's quite a lot of evidence behind this fact. And one of the key things when we were running our pilot, one of the key things that I was really keen on was children's mental health. And you mentioned COVID, and that has had a massive effect on the mental health of children. And in fact, a recent survey by the Children's Society showed that 1 in 5 children have a probable mental health problem. 1 in 5. And there just really isn't the support there to make good and to support the children. So when we talk about social emotional learning, I'm also looking about providing children with the tools that they will be able to, first of all, regulate their emotions, but importantly also learn how to communicate with other people, either their peers or the teachers. And this is really, really important. One quite quick side, if I may. When I was running the pilot, and we ran a number of pilots with some primary schools, and when I was running the pilot, this little boy is really embedded now in my heart, what actually happened. I generally ask the class, what do you do when you get anxious? And the normal kind of answers came, oh, I play football, I speak to my mum, I go to my room and listen to music. And this little boy put his hand up and said, sir, I hit people or I hit my head against the wall. And I was just, oh gosh, okay. So we played the game, and in the game, the children learned to regulate their emotions through heart math. Actually, it's a breathing skill and positive emotion. And at the end of the mission, what I should say is the robots actually run UN development goal missions. So this first mission in the pilot was picking up litter and putting it in recycling bins. Halfway through the game, the robot powers down because they're anxious about an exam, or everyone's in a WhatsApp group that they're not invited in, whatever it might be. And the child then has to coach the robot in emotional regulation. So the child becomes the teacher. So rather than the child sitting as a pupil, the child becomes the teacher. And then the robot powers up and then is able to complete the mission. Now, at the end of the game, it lasted about 30 minutes, all the children were filing out and saying thank you, and it was all very nice. And this little boy came straight over to me. He put his hand out, he shook my hand, and he said, sir, when are you coming back? That was great. I was gobsmacked. And you can still probably feel the emotion now. It was just such a moving thing. And I turned to the teacher and I said, what was that? And this little boy, he was about 11, came from a very, very difficult background, and normally was very disruptive in class. And she said this was the first time that she'd actually seen him totally engaged in doing something in class. That's the need. That has run through, if you like, everything that we do at Koru Vibe with Vibe Cobots. It's getting that dysregulated child, giving all children the ability to learn about emotional regulation and communication, but also the child that misses because they can't relate.
Absolutely. And I think it's a really powerful story and a great example too of how impactful this kind of like skills and ability can be on an individual level for any one person. Just truly like on that at a loss for words, like truly just like a very powerful story and example, and like you said, something that you hold dear and probably is a great motivator to be doing this work on your side as well. Is the plan because you mentioned that first experience, is it to make, additional chapters or lessons? Maybe I'm not using the right terminology, but like continuing on like with a series of more opportunities for kids to play like different chapters of that kind of game.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was our first mission. All our missions were going to aim to link in some way to UN SDGs rather, the social development goals. But the important thing for us is the fact that each mission reinforces the emotional regulation. So the learning by also practicing and experiencing the emotional regulation. And we're using techniques that we teach adults in how to communicate. You've probably heard of colors and how everyone has a different behavioral preference or communication preference. Well, Botnik, for example, who's our blue robot, he is very detailed orientated. Yara is very communicative. So if you've got someone who's detailed and really wants detail, and you've got someone who's communicative, somebody has to flex to be able to communicate better and become more efficient. Just imagine if you can teach children the ability to communicate better and teach children to regulate their emotions so they don't have blowouts. Wow, think of that then going into business, then going into university, having a whole generation coming up that can communicate properly and can regulate their emotions. Not having to teach adults when they're in their 40s or 50s what they should have learned when they were in their, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever. But just to finish, coming on from your point about the different missions, we've already got 17 planned missions already set up. Not actually built yet, we're building them as we go. But the key thing for us right now is just getting traction. And as I said, we've now taken a new partner in our organization that has a platform that we're now putting the missions on. They're already in 450 schools internationally, and they've now got skin in the game. So we're really, really pleased that we're partnering with a company called CyberSquare.
Amazing. And okay, and so you can run your missions through the CyberSquare platform. So they'll give you the distribution into all of those schools to be able to have the missions for the kids to be able to do in class, or maybe some can do it at home as well since it's cloud-based.
They can and they will, but our main thing is this 16,000 primary schools in the UK alone. Noor, as an example, has trained 250,000 children in his out in the Gulf. My business partner, as I say, based in Abu Dhabi, and our development team is based in Malaysia. So our gaming team, that is, and CyberSquare here in London. So basically, as a team, we're really looking at not just hitting what CyberSquare have got, but also going out, looking at multi-academy trusts, for example, where we can spend the effort and hit 10, 15, 20 schools at once, rather than going around each school. We could actually look at hitting and giving this support to children in multi-academy trust. So the key thing with the other key thing I forgot really to say was that Noor's model was all about physical robots, that you needed people in the room and you needed physical, like mechano sets and Lego sets to build and coding and everything else. We don't have any material. So the platform itself is agnostic. So whether you've got an iPad or a tablet or a computer, you'll be able to, as a school, to get access to the missions and access to the games. So we can scale at virtually, very, very little cost. And that is the other big issue. It's not just about numbers. It's more about how we can affect as many children as possible. And sure, the numbers will come, but that's why traction for us is so important.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a point that I was thinking about as well, in terms of, do you need to go on like a school by school basis? Like, I'll say I'm a little less familiar with how the education system is formed in the UK, but you mentioned, was it like multi-party trust or something like that? Would that be the equivalent of like a school district in the US or something, for folks to have like a point of reference to if they're less familiar as well?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a district. It can be a number of schools who have got together and formed a trust. So they can be over several areas. And they also can be primary and secondary schools. And obviously they have benefits of economies of scale and everything else. But it means if we go into a multi-academy trust, instead of just dealing with one headmaster, with one school, we can actually roll this out to like 10 or 15 or 20 schools. And that, again, it's about getting to the children as quickly as we possibly can so that they can actually experience this. Because again, when you start thinking of children reaching 10, 11, and then 12, there's lots of things that are happening. Things like puberty, moving from a small school to a big school. All these things are pressure that children feel. And there's also associated mental health issues that can also come from that. So if we can actually, again, hit the children and support the children with these tools at an early age, later on, we can then start looking at targeting secondary schools. We can then start looking at working with universities, because a lot of dropouts in first year. Well, wouldn't it be great if some of the people that, the first year students also had these tools? And, that really is, it's not just an issue for children. What about parents? And how they might be able to benefit from understanding, for example, if a child is autistic, how best can I deal with it? If the child has difficult behavior, how best can I deal with it?
Yeah, and I think it also follows it broadly, with AI and how quickly everything's moving there in terms of AI's capabilities to do work or do tasks for us. It seems like more and more that, emotional regulation and communication, the things that make us human, are even more important for society today and going forward. And so to be able to have kids better trained and better tuned to be thoughtful about that, I think is, growing in importance versus just the classic skills or maths and science and things that we'll learn, English rules and stuff like that, what language rules, whatever it might be. But yeah, that emotional and communication piece is growing more and more important, it seems like, every day.
Well, I see it really is fundamental. It's almost like the platform that everything else builds on. I say it's not that we're trying to stop people learning about mathematics or English or languages or anything, or any of the arts. This is about giving them the foundation before they as they go through, that enables them to excel in some of the more academic subjects. And one of the things, I wrote a chapter in a book about the meritocracy of exams, and how we're judging people, or children rather, from stuff that was based in the Victorian age. We should be now, and you mentioned AI, one of the things that we have on the platform is AI to personalize some of the missions, so that some of the kids will be very game orientated, others might not be, and also be able to take the load off the teacher. You see, one of the key things we mentioned right at the beginning is that a lot of the teacher overload is by how much work they have to do. Here, the robots run the game. All the teacher has to do is facilitate the class. So teachers, the robots tell the children what to do, they play the game, and they give the feedback. And this is so important, I think, as well, as we're not just thinking about giving the children the support, but also not putting extra pressure on teachers.
Yeah, and give the teacher a little mental break, and let the robot facilitate a bit more of the lesson. I know education, the burden today on teachers everywhere. I definitely really empathize with them, because it seems like standards continue to grow. Parents can be challenging as well in the classroom. And like you said, COVID was such a weird period that it really had a very real impact on students and how they probably behave today. Even, you know, us being 5 years out now, it's still changed society and definitely could change the way that they're growing up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And we're at time, and I want to thank you, Roddy, for joining me today on Bits and Atoms. It was great to have you. Lovely conversation and really impactful work that you're doing. I'll let you get back to it so you can keep getting the missions in front of the kids and not spend any more time chatting with me, and I'll let you get back to it. I want to thank you again for joining, and have a great day and rest of your week.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you, and look forward to chatting to you again another time. Take care.